I was just getting ready for bed last night, feeling relaxed and refreshed after a hot shower. I was tired, but my mind was still active as I went through my usual nighttime routine. It was late, and it was raining hard outside, with the darkness of the night making it hard to see anything beyond the windows. The sound of the rain on the roof and windows was loud and steady, creating a soothing background noise. I got into my pajamas and crawled into bed, feeling cozy and warm under the covers. The rain outside continued to fall, creating a constant, comforting rhythm that was perfect for falling asleep to. I grabbed a bottle of water from the bedside table and took a few swigs, feeling the cool liquid go down my throat. Then I carefully got into bed, snuggling under the covers and finding a comfortable position. I took a few moments to get comfortable, rearranging the pillows and pulling the covers up to my chin. The rain outside continued to fall, making a steady and peaceful sound that slowly lulled me into a relaxed state. As I began to dream, I found myself in a bizarre and surreal scenario that was reminiscent of a Five Nights at Freddy's VHS tape video. It had a similar vibe to the grand reopening video made by the YouTuber Velox, but this one was distinctly different. In my dream, I found myself dressed in a security guard outfit that looked exactly like the one worn by Ryan Reinecke in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. It consisted of a gray long-sleeved foldable neck shirt, a black tie, black pants, and black loafers. In my hand, I had a flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness. In addition to the security guard uniform, I was also wearing a body cam, which was attached to my outfit and recording everything that was happening around me. I was standing in front of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which appeared to be the same one from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, based on the sign featuring the toy animatronics. However, it seemed significantly bigger than the original version, adding to the surreal nature of the dream. The scene in my dream was even more strange, as the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza appeared to be located in a residential neighborhood. There was a smattering of houses with trees in the background behind the building, and even more houses across the road in front of the building, creating a surreal juxtaposition of a pizza parlor and suburban homes. In the midst of the surreal setting of my dream, one particularly strange detail stood out: the fact that the pizzeria was situated in a residential neighborhood instead of downtown. It was a perplexing and illogical placement, leaving me wondering why the restaurant was in this particular location. As I walked into the main entrance of the pizzeria, I immediately noticed that the area where the toy animatronic show stage was located looked different. It was larger and the walls and ceiling were painted white. The tables and arcade games had been rearranged, and Mangle's room had been moved to the left a bit. The new addition was a pristine white hallway that resembled an airport leading to a back exit with glass doors. Another wide hallway was connected to this hallway, but its destination was unknown. The changes to the layout of the building added an uncanny and unfamiliar feeling to the already strange dream, and the stark whiteness of the new additions contrasted sharply with the familiar setting of the pizzeria. I wasn't sure what to make of the alterations, but they only served to deepen the sense of unease and confusion. As I walked further down the main hallway, I passed by the restrooms and noticed that the door to the parts and service room was not at the end of the hallway like in the game, but rather in a different location. This deviation from the game puzzled me, and I found myself wondering where the parts and service room had been moved to. I continued down the main hallway and turned into the doorway that led me past the part rooms and towards the FNAF 2 office. It was a strange feeling, walking through a setting that was so familiar, yet distinctly different from the game. I walked into the office and took a seat at the desk, feeling a sense of confusion wash over me. The office was mostly the same as in the game, but there were subtle differences that added to the dream's surreal atmosphere. I looked at the security cameras and saw an outline of the building that revealed it was the size of a school. This discovery was even more bizarre and difficult to comprehend, adding to the sense of disorientation and confusion. The revelation about the building's size had shed some light on the peculiarities I had noticed earlier. The mysterious absence of the parts and service room at the end of the main hallway made sense now, as did the reason why the other wide hallway had branched off to the right. I switched to the camera display in the wide hallway that branched off to the right, and saw that it was completely empty. with white tiled flooring and fluorescent lights illuminating the area. The hallway looked eerily empty and sterile, like a school hallway in a horror movie. I continued observing the cameras, and as the hallway turned right again, I noticed that there were more party rooms on either side of the corridor. This was yet another unexpected element that added to the dream's sense of surreality. The sight of the additional party rooms along the hallway was bizarre, as they weren't in the game. I began to wonder what other strange twists this dream would bring. I located the door to the parts and service room, which was situated at the end of the hallway on the right wall, according to the camera's outline. I realized that the room was surprisingly close to the office, tucked away just behind it in the building's layout. I switched to the camera in the parts and service room, expecting to see the familiar dark and cramped space from the game. Instead, I found that the room was different and slightly larger. It was a strange and unexpected deviation from the original setting, and it added to the sense of confusion and dreamlike state. The parts and service room was not just larger, but it was also noticeably brighter than in the game. The increased lighting gave the room a more visible and less eerie feel, another inconsistency that added to the dream's unusual atmosphere. As I sat silently in the office chair, I began to ponder the reason behind the pizzeria's unusual size. The building's expansive scale didn't match the game's design, and it felt odd and disconcerting to be in such a familiar, yet unfamiliar setting. As I tried to make sense of the building's abnormal size, I had a strange thought. The pizzeria appeared as if it had undergone some odd renovations, transforming it into a school-like structure. I wondered what William and Henry had been thinking when they designed the building this way, and it added another layer of confusion to the already surreal dream. The mixture of the pizzeria and school-like elements created a strange and unsettling atmosphere, further adding to the dream's sense of surreality. As I sat there in the office, I couldn't help but feel like I was in a dream where reality and fantasy had blended together. I scratched my head, feeling utterly baffled by the situation. The strange combination of the pizzeria and school elements, the enlarged building size, and the unfamiliar layout of the parts and service room were all adding to my confusion and bewilderment. The fact that the pizzeria was situated in the middle of a neighborhood only heightened my confusion and disbelief. It was a bizarre and impossible situation, and I couldn't understand why the building was located in such an odd and illogical place. I reached over and grabbed a slice of pizza that had been left on the side of the desk. The pizza looked as delicious as ever, but the situation I found myself in made even the simple act of eating feel strange and dreamlike. As I took a bite of the pizza, the taste and texture were just as I remembered from the game. However, the whole experience was still surreal and difficult to fathom. I wondered where the pizza had come from, and why it was conveniently laid out on the desk in the unfamiliar office. The pizza's presence served to further confuse me, and added to the sense of dreamlike strangeness that pervaded the entire experience. I continued eating, trying to make sense of the situation, but the more I thought about it, the more perplexing it became. The pizza was strangely delicious, and the familiar taste brought a sense of comfort despite the bizarre circumstances. I savored every bite, but the surreal setting and illogical layout of the building kept gnawing at the back of my mind. After finishing the slice of pizza, I turned my attention back to the camera displays. The images on the screens showed the various rooms and corridors of the pizzeria, but they still appeared different and unfamiliar compared to the game. In addition to observing the rooms and corridors, I also kept an eye on the wide hallway that branched off to the right from the main hallway. The camera display showed the empty corridor, lit by fluorescent lights and completely deserted. The hallway's emptiness and sterility were eerie, and the feeling of isolation in the dream state only heightened that feeling of unease. I continued to watch the cameras, waiting for something to happen. I returned my gaze to the parts and service room camera, focusing on the withered animatronics strewn across the room. At first glance, they appeared familiar, but now that I looked more closely, they seemed strange and altered in some way. As I watched the withered animatronics closely, I noticed that they had changed significantly. Withered Bonnie now had a face and right arm, but the most noticeable difference was that all of them had their teeth sharpened to a point, giving them a nightmarish appearance. The sight of the withered animatronics with sharpened teeth made them look eerily similar to the nightmare animatronics from FNAF 4, despite retaining their original withered design. The combination of these two elements left me feeling uneasy and perplexed. Despite the uncanny changes in appearance, the withered and toy animatronics remained deactivated, still and unmoving in the parts and service room. It was a relief knowing they were not active, but it still did not explain why they had undergone these strange transformations. I continued to monitor the camera feeds, watching the various rooms and corridors of the pizzeria intently. The unusual layout of the building and the ominous changes to the animatronics had left me on edge, and I couldn't help but wonder what other peculiarities this dream would hold. The building's size and design seemed designed to throw off the expectations built from playing the game, and it was hard to discern what changes could be attributed to the dream itself, and what might be part of the altered environment. I continued to watch the cameras, anxiously waiting for what could happen next. After watching the cameras for a while, I decided to step away to take care of a personal matter. I left the office and headed toward the bathroom, located on the opposite side of the main hallway. The journey to the bathroom was a small reprieve from the peculiarities of the dream, but as I opened the door and stepped inside, I realized that even the bathroom seemed slightly different from the one in the game. As I entered the bathroom, the first thing that struck me was that it looked different from what I would have expected based on the game. The game itself had never explicitly shown the bathroom, and seeing the actual bathroom now made the whole situation feel even more dreamlike and surreal. As I looked around the bathroom, I noticed an unusual feature. In a bizarre twist, the men's room had a troof instead of the usual urinals, which seemed like a comically absurd design choice. I stood there in disbelief, staring at the troof in the men's room, trying to make sense of why it was there. It seemed like an absurd and illogical element to include in an otherwise normal bathroom, and I silently judged whoever had designed it. After taking care of my business, I went to the sink to wash my hands, feeling a bit more relaxed but still confused by the peculiarities of the location. I dried my hands and made my way back to the office to continue watching the cameras. As I walked back down the main hallway, my mind raced with questions about the strange size and layout of the building, the nightmare-like appearance of the withered animatronics, and the surreal presence of a troof in the men's room bathroom. The more I observed, the more the dream felt like a waking nightmare. I returned to the office and sat back in the chair, turning my attention back to the security cameras. The monitors displayed the various rooms and corridors, and I studied them closely, hoping to find some clue or explanation for the peculiarities I had encountered so far. While watching the cameras, I reached over to the side of the desk and grabbed another slice of pizza. I took a bite, savoring the familiar taste, and then reached for a can of grape-flavored fizzy fizz. The combination of pizza and soda was a welcome comfort, a small reminder of normal life in a situation that defied comprehension. The pizza and the fizzy drink were like a lifeline, providing a sense of normalcy in a situation that was anything but normal. The familiarity of the food and drink, paired with the surreal state of the building I was in, only heightened the sense of dreamlike confusion. I took another bite of the pizza and sipped the fizzy drink, trying to make sense of the bizarre world I found myself in. The pizza's taste provided a small bit of comfort, but the strange environment and the changes in the animatronics only added to the feeling of being in a waking nightmare. I finished the slice of pizza and continued drinking the fizzy drink, feeling a little more grounded now that I had something familiar to hold on to. I monitored the camera feeds, hoping to find some clue or explanation for what was happening, but the images on the screens offered no answers, only more confusion and dread. Despite the comfort of the pizza and the fizzy drink, I couldn't shake the feeling of being stuck in a dream where nothing made sense. The cameras offered no answers, just more images of the strange and unfamiliar layout of the building. I took a deep breath and tried to focus on the task at hand, but my mind kept wandering back to the perplexing changes in the building and the nightmarish alterations to the animatronics. I flicked through the camera display on the monitor, switching to the parts and service room camera located at the other end of the building. I was curious to see if the withered animatronics had moved at all since the last time I checked. The image on the screen showed the parts and service room in stillness. The withered animatronics were still in the same positions, unmoving and deactivated. Despite their nightmare-like appearance, they seemed to be remaining in their dormant state. As I watched the camera feed, my heart skipped a beat when the withered animatronics suddenly sat up in unison and stared directly at the camera. The sudden movement and eye contact sent a shiver down my spine. The sight of the withered animatronics coming to life and speaking was already unsettling enough, but when Withered Chica uttered those chilling words, "You are not alone," my anxiety turned into full-blown fear. The camera feed went blank for a moment, leaving me in a state of uncertainty and dread. But when the feed resumed, the parts and service room was empty. The withered animatronics had vanished. The realization that the withered animatronics were on the move sent a chill down my spine. Memories of the VHS tape grand reopening flooded my mind, and I recalled the fate of the unfortunate security guard who had been caught by the animatronics and placed in the torture machine from the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Realizing the danger of staying in the office, I made a split-second decision to make a run for it. I didn't want to be caught by the withered animatronics, especially given their nightmarish appearance and the memories of what had happened to the security guard in the VHS tape. I hastily rose from the chair and sprinted towards the front entrance, my heart pounding in my chest. The adrenaline coursing through my body propelled me forward as I desperately tried to escape the reach of the withered animatronics. The thought of being caught by the nightmares of the game was unbearable. I dashed through the empty corridors, my footsteps echoing loudly in the silence. As I neared the front entrance, I could hear a faint sound from behind me, but I didn't dare to look back. I arrived at the front entrance, only to find it locked. I tried frantically to unlock it with the key, but for some inexplicable reason it wouldn't work. The sound from behind me was getting closer, and the realization that I was trapped heightened my terror. The sound of Withered Chica's echoic voice reached my ears, sending a shudder down my spine. Her ominous statement, "There is no escape," left me baffled and scared. How did she know I was trying to escape? It seemed like the nightmare was getting even more bizarre and terrifying. As I stood frozen in front of the locked front entrance, the sound of Withered Chica's echoic voice rang through the building. In a desperate attempt to find another escape route, I hastily turned and headed down the wide hallway that led to the back exit. It was connected to the other wide hallway that branched off to the right, creating a labyrinthine network of rooms and corridors. As I moved quickly down the hall towards the back exit, I stopped momentarily to check the other hallway. The layout was confusing, with the hall turning right, then left, and ending in a long straight stretch that extended far down the building. The hallway then turned right again, leading directly to the parts and service room. As I glanced carefully around the corner, I was puzzled by what I saw. Instead of seeing a different section of the building, the hall simply appeared to lead to another section of the same long stretch of the hallway. There were two big open doorways, but they were directly connected to the same stretch of the hall, making little sense in the dream's illogical layout. As I cautiously observed the area, I suddenly spotted Nightmare Fredbear peeking out of one of the doorways in a walking pose. It was strange to see him there, when the withered animatronics were supposed to be the ones pursuing me. Nightmare Fredbear hadn't noticed me yet, giving me a chance to remain hidden. I swiftly returned to the shorter section of the connected wide hallway and turned right, making a beeline for the exit doors. Just as I was about to reach them, a lady suddenly appeared, confusing me even further. I questioned the lady's presence and warned her about the nightmarish withered animatronics. Surprisingly, she revealed she was the cleaning lady and mentioned that the withered animatronics avoided her due to her job. She explained that the animatronics seemed to be fixated on targeting security guards above all. The cleaning lady kindly held the back exit door open for me as I hurried through it. Once outside, I began to run, distancing myself from the eerie confines of the pizzeria. Just as I was escaping, Withered Chica's haunting voice echoed through the air, saying, "Get back here, night guard." I looked back to see her standing at the exit door, and she repeated the demand. Panicked, I broke into a sprint, trying to put distance between myself and the nightmarish animatronic. As I ran, Withered Chica burst through the exit door and began to pursue me. Her relentless determination sent chills down my spine, and I knew I had to keep running to avoid being caught. I continued sprinting, desperately trying to escape Withered Chica's pursuit. I ran around the pizzeria, eventually making my way to the parking lot where my car was parked. As I approached my car, I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking from the adrenaline and fear. I had to get in and drive away before Withered Chica could catch up. I finally managed to unlock the car door and quickly slid into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut behind me. My heart pounded in my chest as I hastily put the key into the ignition, praying that the engine would start. The engine roared to life, and I wasted no time in shifting the gear into drive. As I accelerated, I glanced in the rearview mirror, relieved to see that Withered Chica was still a distance away. I drove out of the parking lot, glancing back every now and then to make sure that Withered Chica wasn't nearby. The adrenaline was still coursing through my veins, and my hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as I continued driving away from the nightmarish pizza place. Despite my efforts to put distance between us, I noticed in the rearview mirror that Withered Chica was still on my trail, refusing to give up on her pursuit. In that moment, my eyes darted down to my belt and spotted a gun holstered there. I had forgotten about it in the chaos of the situation, but now it felt like a lifeline. I quickly activated the car's autopilot feature, allowing the vehicle to keep driving on its own. This freed up my hands to focus on the gun in my belt. With my eyes fixed on Withered Chica still pursuing me, I took aim and prepared to fire back. I steadied my aim and fired a shot at Withered Chica, aiming at her face. The bullet found its target, and she staggered momentarily. Following the shot, Withered Chica collapsed on the road, motionless and deactivated. It seemed like I had finally managed to disable her, at least temporarily. With Withered Chica now taken care of, at least for the moment, I shifted my focus back to driving. The relief I felt was tinged with caution, as I knew that the nightmare might not be over yet. As the adrenaline began to subside, I took deep breaths to steady my nerves. The sight of Withered Chica lying motionless on the road behind me was both cathartic and eerie. I could only hope that I had managed to put enough distance between myself and the cursed pizzeria now. As I continued driving, a faint light appeared in the distance, cutting through the darkness. Curiosity and caution mixed in my mind as I wondered what lay ahead. Intrigued and somewhat apprehensive, I drove onward, heading straight towards the mysterious light. As I passed through it, a sense of disorientation momentarily washed over me, like crossing an invisible threshold into a different reality. I suddenly jolted awake, my heart racing as I found myself disoriented. The realization that it had all been a strange and terrifying dream slowly began to sink in, and I took a moment to process what had just happened. I was still in shock, my heart pounding and my mind racing. As the remnants of the dream faded away, I struggled to come to terms with the intensity of what had just occurred. It had felt so real, and yet here I was, back in reality, facing the mundane and ordinary once more. I glanced at the clock, the digital numbers reading 6 a.m. The sight of the time was oddly reassuring, grounding me in the real world once more. I step out of bed, wrapping a robe around myself, and make my way downstairs to the kitchen. The remnants of the dream still linger in the back of my mind, but I push them aside as I focus on ordinary tasks like making a pot of coffee and preparing breakfast.